is Resper Gogo, for those of you who do not know me. I stand here with the privilege to share with you some insights of aging gracefully. But before we do that, let's bow our heads wherever you are in a short prayer. Heavenly Master, we want to thank you in a very special way that you've given us as a church an opportunity to be together and to remember you even as you have given us the blessings of the many years many of our members have experienced until they are calling themselves golden ages. We thank you, Master, that we want to share this program. May we invite your Spirit to be in our midst, that what we say may be a blessing that comes from none other than you, is our prayer. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you so much. This is a short presentation on some of the things on retirement or golden ages, because we know when you are a golden ager, there are many things that come with it. There are blessings, obviously, but there are also challenges that come with it. We'll spend a few minutes just looking at what is all this story about retirement. So I've entitled my discussion this afternoon to Creating a Retirement Purpose and Fulfillment. In small brackets, finding a purpose. The brief content page will define what retirement is. We'll look at a few historical facts, look at a few types of retirement, also share a few insights on what many people don't talk about retirement. And then the key word here is refining purpose and redefining yourself or ourselves. Look at some of the common mistakes that contribute to not enjoying retirement, and some of the things successful retirees do, and how we plan for retirement. Then we shall summarize, and at the end of it, we'll give each one of you an opportunity to share insights or have any questions. Thank you. As we do that, I want to share one of my favorite verses in the Bible, Psalms 90, verse 10 and 12. Verse 10 talks about the days of our years are 80 years and 10, and if by reason of strength they are 80 years, yet is their strength labor and sorrow, for it is soon cut off and we fly away. So we know that at the end of the day, at the stage we are in as golden ages, the Lord has been faithful to us, and many of us have done our 80 plus 10, which is 70 years. And we are told even after 70 years, if you are lucky, you will enjoy a little bit of strength, but quite a number of them will be full of sorrows. And ultimately, we face the inevitable, dying, which we all know as Seventh-day Adventists. It is sleep until we get to the second coming of Christ, who will wake those who trust in him to go with him to heaven. So, verse 12 talks us to teach us to number our days, that we may be able to apply our hearts unto wisdom. Even in African tradition, we used to believe, and I'm sure it is still there in many places, that as you age, you become wise. So the psalmist is also reminding us that even in our golden age, there is a lot of wisdom we are carrying. And therefore, the Lord needs to teach us how we can number those days, because when you are in your 70s, you have lived most of your active life. What wisdom can you impart on people before your time on earth is gone? So let's define very briefly what retirement is all about. Retirement, simply put, it's the time of that time of life when one chooses to permanently leave the workforce behind. And you can see our life stages. We start as babies until at the end of the day, some of us are already in that situation where we are walking with the assistance of a walking stick. Let's look at a few historical facts that we cannot change as a result of retirement. The traditional retirement age in Kenya is 60 years. Other developed countries have got 65 years. But we also know now With advanced technologies, people are now living longer and healthier lives. And we know even post-retirement in Kenya, people can live up to 95 years, which means you can retire and still have another 35 years of your life on earth. The question is, what are you doing with those 35 years post-retirement? They are not short years. And therefore we need, even in our old age, to start planning, even when we are working, that I have another life that I need to live after retirement. And I hope as we share these slides this evening, we can start reflecting on what else can we be doing with a very significant part of our life should the Lord give us an extra 30 plus years post-retirement. The other historical fact is people are facing shrinking pension. There are people who retired on pension, but the pension is now shrinking. Those of you, we know we live in Kenya, we know how things have gone up. If you are driving a car as a retiree 2 years ago, today the petrol prices alone are almost double. So what happens to your pension? It becomes half of what you used to have. And with petrol going up, everything else follows. The other historical fact is that we have a changing workforce. So a number of professionals, because many of us have been professionals in the past, we are different from the earlier generation when you had people doing manual work and they actually retired early because at 55 or even 50, their bodies were worn out by virtue of the work they were doing. But that is changing. So you now find people who are doing professional jobs are fairly healthy at the age of 60. And therefore, they actually prefer to do some other work besides retirement. So it cannot just be leisure, because there's still a lot of energy in one at the age of 60 if you have lived a healthy life. The other historical fact is instead of people retiring, some are actually opting to work part-time. Others are opting to become business people, entrepreneurs. And some, they are taking actually what I referred to earlier as their wisdom and experience and put it into use in different ways. Seniors are frequently stereotyped by society as fragile, dependent, and a societal burden. That you'll find when you are retiring, people even tend to keep away from you because all they can see in you is a burden. And then you'll find the people who are calling you many times, now your phone goes unanswered, and if they answer, they'll tell you they are busy. So this is the stereotyping that has, in our society, been entrenched for many years. And this, a lot of the time, makes the retirees feel unwanted, and you can find it very depressing and actually deny you a healthy retirement period. Very briefly, I want us to look at 3 types of retirement. This is the traditional that we all know. You work, you do whatever you want to do, and you just reach retirement and you retire. Naturally, this requires that you save money early and invest prudently so that your money continues to generate income you can live on. We also know that social security, as it is said today in this country, unlike other advanced countries, is a backdrop. You cannot rely on that as something for retirement. So the encouragement is that when you are working, save as much as you can on top of the social security that is being given to you by the government. The other type of retirement is semi or temporary retirement. And you find some people take a mini retirement, they take some months off. This is more so of the advanced countries, but a few Africans are doing it as well. They take some months off, and then they come back and do some temporary work, and it gives them a little bit a longer period of earnings that flow in, but at the end of the day, they'll finally retire. It is happening in advanced countries, and I'm sure as we advance, it's probably going to be more entrenched locally. The other type of retirement is this one of I think just come, you find the other time of retirement, I talked about semi-retirement, permanent retirement, and one whereby you have a few things you are doing here and there in between before you finally decide to retire. Now, things no one tells us about retirement. Many people do not have time to even share what retirement is all about. Remember I mentioned a lot of the times retirees are shunned, so it is not easy for them to sit down with people who will advise them on how they need to move from one stage to the other. One important thing that we must take into account that is retirement is a huge life adjustment. And if not done well, many people get into depression. And therefore, we need, as we are advancing towards our retirement years, to be aware that this is going to be a major life change. A lot of the time we think that in retirement you'll spend less. The reality is you'll find you are spending more. And the other thing that people don't talk about in retirement is that you have a lot of time on your hands. And how do you gainfully fill that gap? I have seen in Kenya here, and research has shown, particularly the male or the men, sometimes find it very difficult to fill the gap post-retirement. And therefore, they find themselves idle with not much to do, and it begins to be taking toll on them psychologically. So, how do we redefine the purpose of life after retirement? Because remember, you have moved away from your regular job, and now you want to look at life from a very different perspective. So how we answer this question is to find out how are we giving ourselves a sense of purpose by asking these three very simple questions. Are you doing an activity that you love? Are you good at that activity? And do others benefit from what you offer? When you do that, you find you are actually defining your purpose for post-retirement. And if you do it critically and well, you'll find retirement will give you a lot of joy that you were not expecting. Let's look at some of the common mistakes that contribute to not enjoying retirement years. Many people believe pension is good enough. I think I mentioned earlier, pension is subject to erosion and inflation, and within no time, past experience has shown that you will probably lose your pension value around 20% every year. So in year 5, your pension has become like only 20% of what it was able to buy for you in year 1. The other common thing for us Africans is depending on children. We believe that now that we have done our bit and taken them to school and they are now working, they are the ones who are going to sustain us. The reality is some of those children in the current state do not have jobs. Or if they do have jobs, the challenges of what they are earning and if they have family is not enough to go around to take care of the parents. And some children just don't want to do it because that's what society is here today. And many, many parents become very frustrated when they find the children are not coming through for them. So what realistic compromise can you do when you are bringing up your children? Do you put everything to your children and hope they'll help you? Or do you create a compromise whereby while you are supporting your children's growth, you are also putting something aside for yourself? And therefore, it's very, very important to be modest and moderate on what you are doing with your children. I know some people take their children to very high-cost schools or very expensive, education centers, hoping that when they do well, the children will pay back. And the reality is that doesn't happen. So we need to be very careful what we are doing with our children, even when we mean well for them. The other thing the other mistake we normally make is many people retire and they are given money in lump sum. And all kinds of people crop up and say, bring this money, let's do this with it. Bring this money, let's do this with it. It's very risky to expose your money to investments that are of high risk. Generally, in retirement, your investments should be in low-risk projects that actually guarantee you a return. High-risk investments should have been done when you are at work so that if they don't work well, you can go back to your employer or a loan or something to get yourself. And a lot of the time, as I've said, you may listen to friends, listen to them, but have a spirit of discernment so that you hear them and make a prudent decision on what you want to do with your money. There are many, many cases of people who have lost money because they were told of deals and because they have cash which they have never seen before. Then they put the money there and the money disappears there and they are moneyless or they become penniless, which becomes very, very difficult for them. So one of the other mistakes that we all make, retirement comes from what we have said, from aging. And one of the things that comes with aging is health. Health is very, very important because whether you like it or not, you are an old person. Your body will start breaking down. So where possible, it is recommended highly that you take on an health insurance. For many people, they would have been insured when they were in their workplace. If possible, carry that insurance with you. Sometimes it may look a lot of money, but when you look back at what it can do for you when you have a health problem, it is worth the investment. The other mistake people make is to start buying property when they are using retirement money. Not that the property is bad, but the returns on property may not be good enough. So when you look at the property you are buying, if you are buying a property for 20 million and the return for you is probably 100 or less, is that what you want to do with that money, or there are better investments for that money that can give you a better return? So property, and the problem with property in retirement is when you try to sell it, it can take you a very long time. You need to put food on the table. And therefore, be very careful when you start thinking of putting your retirement money in property. In fact, there have been cases whereby people decide, I never had a good house. Now my children have finished school. Let me go and build this grand big house in the village. And they start, and it reaches a certain point, and it stalls, and the money is gone, and they have nothing to live on. So be very careful on what you are doing post-retirement. Sometimes relocating too quickly when you don't understand the environment where you are going to can also be very risky because you reach there and discover things which if you knew, you probably would not have gone. So take your time on retirement, just settle down, investigate where you want to go, get as much information as possible before you make that leap to go and relocate. Also, as older people in retirement, resist from staying in isolated places like farmhouses, because remember you are alone or you are together with your spouse. Security is important. The place may look very nice and lush, but if you do not have enough money to invest in security, it is not advisable to go and stay in an isolated place. A few of the things that we can look at where people who have retired successfully have done. People who have retired successfully think through very critically on how they want to spend their time. Remember, we had said knowing what to do with your time after retirement is very, very important. So it's good to take time to understand how you want to spend your time so that you know what you want to do in retirement. Importantly, how is your finances, or how are your finances covered in retirement? Are you relying just on pension? Are you relying on family? What are you relying on so that you are financially viable? Because the worst thing that happens to retirees is when they turn into beggars. Then when they meet people, people run away from them because they know, oh, this is so-and-so. I know he's going to ask for money. It's been pitiable to see people in retirement in the village. They are really looking pathetic because they have borrowed from everybody else, and now people are just avoiding them. So it is good to sit down and plan your finances. Not that it will cover you 100%, but it will help you know if something goes wrong, what else can I have instead of not covering? And again, as I mentioned, many of them know how to cover their health needs. because that is very, very important. So successful retirees also continue to use their money and time wisely. And it has been discovered through research that when you spend time and money helping others, it is very, very good, because when you go home, you feel you have done something to society, and it is very, very fulfilling, and you actually feel you are a useful member of society. So what we do advise is, instead of just staying home not knowing what to do, even if you are not earning money, go out and volunteer, go out and help. When you are helping others, you feel so good that at the end of the day, your day is well spent, and you know somebody has benefited from that day. In retirement also, you cannot do everything that you used to do when you were younger. So look at what you need to do, and where it is not possible, ask other people to do it on your behalf. For mamas, if you used to go to the river to fetch water, you are no longer strong enough to fetch water, ask somebody to do it, because you will force yourself to fetch the water, and one day, when you are walking up and down, you'll fall and fracture your leg, and the rest becomes a story of you staying in a wheelchair. So outsource what you cannot do. Stay social. Again, research has shown that when you are lonely and alone, a lot of the time, negative thoughts fill your mind, and you find that you are lonely and you are feeling a sense of hopelessness, and you actually just see your days are long, you are finding yourself useless. Stay social. Keep close to your friends, or make friends who will help you. And one thing I cannot overemphasize is continue to grow. People believe when you retire, you've left everything else. Hey, go back to school if you can. And now we have the online lessons you can learn. Do that hobby, that thing that you wanted to do that you have never had time to do when you are working. It will re-energize you, you'll feel good about yourself, and you'll be amazed at how much you can do in retirement. So, just a quick one on how people plan for retirement. I know it may not be relevant for many people here, but there are those in our group who are about 65 or 60 and they're still working. Just ask yourself, where do I want to be in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years from now? Take stock of your current situation. As you are preparing to retire, what do you have? Is it land? Is it houses? Is it whatever? Put them all together, and what do you owe? Because that begins to be your starting point on how you want to manage your finances. And if you have not retired, when you put that thing in place, you will ask yourself, if you are still working, so how many years do I need to work for me to be able to fulfill what I want to do in the next 3, 4, 5 years and going on? And therefore, how do you want to live post-retirement? One of the things we recommend, simplify and sell unwanted properties. You find a retiree sleeping hungry, but he has land in Kajiado, he has some plot in another place, Simplify all those. And since you don't need them, you're a retiree, just keep the basics that will help you to use in your retirement space. Too many of those things give you a lot of work in managing them. They probably are not worth it. And you need time just to feel relaxed and not be running around with people who are not paying you rent, or people who are trying to swindle the land from you for one reason or another. So put all these scattered investments into a few focused, manageable ones. Keep yourself in good health. I've mentioned about insurance and staying healthy, maybe exercise. If you are seeing a doctor, we recommend actually that you seek medical check at least once a year to see your medical status. Try to be as clean as you can, okay? Minimize or prevent accidental injuries, like the one I talked about, going to the river. You may start on an activity that you know can bring injury, avoid them. Have a right mental attitude. Keep yourself busy and active, because there is no evidence that when you are retired, your mind becomes inactive. It will only become inactive for as long as you keep it inactive. It will work. You can go back. There are people who have gone to school and even done up to their PhD in post-retirement. So it is possible. But again, as I mentioned before, nurture the relationships you have had in the past, and even the ones that you want to create there. So in summary and conclusion of this brief on challenges faced by retirees, there was a recent study done by a researcher from Kenyatta National Hospital who found out that the major challenge faced by retirees, and that was 96%, was the high living expenses and inability to afford basic needs like food, clothing, and decent housing. A World Bank report sometimes back showed that postal workers who retired, 95% of them had died within 10 years, and the majority of them had died within 5 years of retirement. This tells you if we are not well prepared for retirement, many people can die within 5 to 10 years. 95%, it means only 10% were able to survive within 10 years. Reason among some of the things we have mentioned. So the question we ask ourselves, ladies and gentlemen, is that how can you avert, or how can I avert the old age crisis that is just ahead of us or within us? Proverbs 23:7 says, as a man thinketh, so is he. It's telling us, if you think in retirement, you are useless, that's where your brain will take you. If you think in retirement, you're going to do great things that will have society in your wisdom, like we looked at the book of Psalms, that is what your mind will tell you. Thank you so much for this brief presentation, and I will open the floor for any questions, answers, or comments on the discussion here, or anything outside the discussion that you feel we need to hear. Thank you so much. You're welcome.